following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA network.
Hi, everybody. This is former WWE superstar Al Snow.
CW Anderson.
Sean Oliver.
My name is Eugene.
And you are watching the Insider's Edge podcast.
Now get on the train.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WCWA network in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, California, in Fury. What a joy, what a privilege, what an honor to be with you all here today, because I get the opportunity, the honor, the joy, the privilege to speak to a legend in the sport of deathmatch professional wrestling, just professional wrestling in general, everybody. This man right here has been the king of the death match. He's won Tournament of Death countless times. He is the one, he is the only, Masada. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for that awesome introduction. That was badass.
No worries, bro. And I know it's, you know, it's still the morning there for you right now. So I apologize if I'm a little bit.
No, you're good. Yeah, I literally just woke up. I mean, it's my weekend. So I'm used to getting up at like 6 a.m. So
Right.
got Labor Day tomorrow, so but hey,
Oh,
I appreciate it for
bro.
having me on the show. It's awesome.
No, awesome, man. We've been slowly but surely ticking off a few deathmatch legends here and there, guys like Sick Nick Mondo and Thumbtack Jack and DJ Hyde, a few others, but yeah. So it's just like
DJ on?
Yeah, I had him on last weekend, and it was supposed to go for an hour, and it went for 3.5 hours. So
Yeah, how's he doing?
Yeah, he seems good. He seems pretty pumped up about what's coming for CZW in the next 6 months to a year. So he's got a lot of plans in place, and everything seems pretty exciting on his end. So yeah. It's pretty good.
Good.
Anyway, bro, the first question that we usually have on the show is, before you got into the business, were you a fan of professional wrestling, and how did you become a fan of professional wrestling, if so?
Yeah, I was a fan since age 5. Like, funny enough, like literally so when I said age 5, it's like ESPN used to show wrestling every day. Like, honestly, there was still like the territories were still alive. So you had AEW, or not AEW, that was new.
AWA?
AWA, sorry. Yeah, AWA, Old Mid-South, and then Global World Class Championship Wrestling. And like I said, it was on every day. Like, wow. You could watch wrestling, and as soon as wrestling was over, it would have American kickboxing. So when I would get out of school, I would always watch it, So it was like, boom, and, see everything. I remember watching, like, Ultimate Warrior before he was Ultimate Warrior. It was Dingo Warrior. Too Cold Scorpio when he debuted, and I just said it. Bear with me, I just woke up. So the cool, AWA. Right? So yeah. But the cool thing is, like, back in the day, so AWA, like wrestling, they used to actually do like the whole of the week, and it would be the two wrestlers and actually explaining how to do this. I don't know how good that was for, like, to teach kids, go back to school and like stretch your bully, but yeah, it was cool. But yeah, I was a big fan. I love watching wrestling, and my dad was a wrestling fan, and my grandfather. So
cool.
Slowly, gradually got into it. I kind of fell out of it when I was in my late teens, but then towards my later teens, I fell back into it.
Right, cool. So you're 5 years old when you become a fan, and you're watching kind of the older style of wrestling, I suppose, as it's starting to slowly but surely, you mentioned Too Cold Scorpio. So now things are happening where, it's evolving a little bit. There's going to be guys doing crazy stuff like he was doing. But you get back into it when you're a teenager. Is this when you like maybe become more of a fan of the hardcore style? Maybe you catch some ECW or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing is, so like I said, like I fell out of it. The crazy thing is, like, ESPN showed everything. Like I miss the fact like they actually when they showed so much wrestling, it was awesome. But gradually, you know, I grew out of it, and some friends of mine actually were telling me about ECW. Now this is later on when I'm, you know, 15, 16, and they're like, this is real, you know, they're doing no rope barbed wire matches, and you know, check out this guy Sabu, and I was like, oh shit, okay, that's legit. But at that time, I was in martial arts, you know, and UFC was kind of like just starting off and becoming a big deal. So I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do cage fighting, you know. It was, you know, MMA before it was even MMA. But, you know, when I saw like ECW, I was like, holy crap, you know, like that's what I want to do. I want to go back into wrestling, or, you know, that dream of being a wrestler. So that's what happened. But yeah, you know
cool,
what I mean?
right.
It's like, I was like, this
Yeah,
guy's
man.
gonna be getting paid a lot of money to be doing that crap, you know. But, I mean, the naive thing is for me, it's like, you know, you have Abdullah the Butcher, you have Bruiser Brody, but you know, as a little kid, you know, at 5 years old, like I didn't really grasp anything of like what was going on until later on in my teens. Like, oh man, these guys are hardcore, and you know, they're beating the hell out of each other. You know, AWA actually had a lot of really violent matches back in the day. They used to have the cage matches with the handcuffs, and if you handcuff your opponent, you get to beat on them for like 5 minutes and then release them. It's like, like that's insane. I don't think anybody's done that. I honestly don't think anybody's ever done that gimmick, you know, since the 80s. But you know. And
Yeah, no,
DJ, bring it back.
yeah, no, I can totally see how something like ECW would definitely bring in, you know, a teenage fan. Because when I first saw it, it was a little bit later down the line, but it blew my mind as well. At some point, you finally do make the jump into doing some training at the Texas Wrestling Academy. Rudy Boy Gonzalez and the great Shawn Michaels running that school. Could you please tell us about, you know, how you went about it? Did you find the advertisement in a Bill Apter magazine or something like that?
Well, the funny thing is, actually, originally, okay, so March 8th of 1999 is when I started training. And I didn't train with TWA originally. I trained with the Gulf Coast Wrestling Alliance.
Okay.
With my original trainer, Steve Obrey, who was trained by Buzz Sawyer from WCW, who, you know, had a history of being a real asshole. So, but I trained with him, you know, a lot of things like my high flying and submissions and suplexes came through Steve, and I had a falling out with him, and then started training with Rudy Boy and Shawn. You know, I'd say probably like 2 years after training with Steve Obrey, then I started training with Rudy Boy and Shawn. So I already knew everything, but honestly, like Rudy and Shawn are the ones that taught me psychology of putting everything together. Steve was more like Japanese-based psychology, where you're going to go in there and just beat the hell out of each other, and you know, once the guy can't, you know, kick out a three, like that's what it is. But then I started training with Rudy Boy and Shawn, where it's like, okay, this is the psychology part of why you're doing everything, and get the emotion out of everybody. And it's really cool, you know, training with those guys and learning things, you know. And when I did my WWE tryouts, like Pat Patterson, funny enough, was another person that actually helped me with psychology of like, you should react like this, and this, you should be angry at this point and do this and fight, you know, everything's a fight, you know, instead of it just being like, you know, a free-for-all, like spot fest of like trying to show your athletic ability, you know. But yeah, pay my dues.
Absolutely, bro. And I've heard many stories about Shawn at the time. I know, like, he had suffered his injury, but apparently, still at training, he was still like bumping quite a lot. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and his back was still messed up, you know. He would bump, but the thing is, it's like more or less like class. Like Rudy Boy would be the one that was telling everybody what to do, and then Sean would come in and he would demonstrate it with his really high little bike shorts. I don't know why the hell he wore those, but yeah. You know what I mean? Hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But I always thought that was kind of odd. But yeah, you know. But those are the guys that've been in the business for a long time, you know. So mentors and listen to them definitely.
Of course. I tried my hardest in my research to find out when you had your first match. I could not find out. I'm assuming it was in 2002. Do you remember your first match? Who it was for? No, it was earlier than that, or
no, it was earlier than that. The thing is, like, Wikipedia, like, is so
it's
inaccurate.
Full of shit.
yeah, it's definitely full of shit. Like, and I don't know how to change anything on there. So, like I said, I started training March 8th of 1999. And I would say probably like 4 months into training, I had my first match in Orange, Texas. And that's actually where the school was originally, was in Orange, Texas, which is close to Beaumont. It's Southeast Texas. Yeah. So I broke in 99 and I was working the Louisiana indie scene where I met Luke Hawks. At the time, he was, you know who Luke Hawks is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so met him. A lot of guys, Kevin Northcutt, Steve Southern, who has broke out, made a name for himself in New Japan. But anyway, so I broke in, Louisiana scene and the Southeast Texas scene, and then gradually when I started training with Rudy Boy and Sean, that's where they have it like, oh, he debuted in 2001 or whatever the hell it is. But it's like, no, that's inaccurate. And then another thing too is like I'm 6'2" and I weigh a shoot weight of 231. On Wikipedia it has me at 6 foot tall and I weigh 216. No. Like,
okay. I have an account on there.
Like,
I can actually edit it for you. I have an account on there, so if you want me to edit that for you, I can do that.
Yeah, I would. I appreciate it. That'd be awesome. Yeah, because cool. Originally it did have at one point in time. It did have that I trained at CWA and and my original trainer, and then training with Sean and Rudy Boy, but I don't know what happened with it. It got changed, and I was like, "Well, I didn't change." Yeah,
I've already got two things wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've been wrestling for 23 years. So
yeah, holy crap, bro!
Crazy, because I started when I was 17. And I'm 40 now.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Okay, so that was when you had your first match. The first match, do you still remember it? So it's 20 odd years ago now, but do you remember it? Nerves?
Yeah,
how did it go?
No, I do. Yeah, I do remember it because I wrestled with my trainer, and I just remember getting my ass kicked. I was like, okay, I remember the first day of training. All right, so my first match, I remember getting my ass kicked and just getting brutalized. And then I remember, from age 11 to 14, I did martial arts. So a lot of people don't know this, but I have a secondary black belt in Taekwondo. And, I think I'm a tough guy. I could break bricks. Like, honestly, if you had a stack of bricks, I could break them, boards and whatnot. And my first day of wrestling training, it's like, trained, and the next morning I could not get out of bed. I was like, oh man, do I want to do this? Yeah, I mean, wrestling is brutal. Like, wrestling is like honestly the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, physically and mentally, because later on you get with all the mental crap of trying to find work and deal with people. But I remember my match. It was in National Guard Armory in Orange, Texas, and it was just pretty much just a strong style match of just bumping around and getting beat on. So yeah. Toughen you up.
That's it, bro. I wanted to ask where the name Masada came from, because when I first heard your name, and please don't get me wrong, I only just really in the last couple of years started exploring deathmatch stuff. And when I interviewed Matt Tremont, we talked about you. I always imagined that you were Japanese because Masada just makes me think of like Kenta. It's in capitals. It makes me think, And then I saw you. I'm like, oh, he looks like he could be a guitarist in a heavy metal band.
Yeah. Well, the
Where did
crazy
the name
thing
come
is,
from?
well, my mom and dad are funny enough. They're the ones that told me about Mount Masada in Israel, and they told me the story about what happened there with a Jewish colony, and then the Roman Empire couldn't figure out how to get up there to enslave them because the empire was like really big. And once Rome figured out how to get onto that peninsula to get up there to enslave them, they all committed mass suicide. And for me, it's like, that's spoke a lot of, it's like, whoa, that's crazy. I've never heard that story before. And the funny thing is, like, when I first went to Japan, they were like, Masada is like a Japanese name, but it's kind of weird because I never thought that, it's like, whoa. But the whole story is based on that premise of history of where you won't be enslaved by a major, not government, I want to say, but more or less like an army of just, you're going to do this. Instead of being enslaved, they'd rather die, so that's where the name came from. That's a lot of my personality, just in general, of just life. I want to live my life to the fullest and do what I want to do. And I don't want someone to tell me what I can and can't, So that's where Masada comes from. And that's the attitude. And a lot of things, as a wrestler and as a performer, I really haven't played too much into it. But like, I get announced from Waco, Texas, where I'm not from. But the thing is, like, it's basically being announced from Waco is supposed to be more or less like the Branch Davidian compound of like put two and two together. Because I remember as a kid that happening, and I remember the lies that were told about the main guy that was running things, and like what the FBI was saying about him, proclaiming to be Jesus Christ, and like they went in there and slaughtered those people, which isn't right. And it all comes down to just like the fact that he was selling guns, or they just didn't like what he was doing. So it's more or less like a anti-conformist, persona. And which, I mean, that's me in general. It's like I just won't bow down to anybody. But that's where Masada comes from. But the crazy thing is, like, when I went to Japan, the first time they were like, well, you might need to change your name. I was like, why? Well, Masada's a Japanese name. I was like, what? Like, I thought it was from Israel. It's a Jewish name, but I didn't change my name. Like, me being.
Is he still there? I think he might have dropped out.
Like I said, with wrestling, like, I really haven't done any just due on where it comes from, or really played into a character on where my standpoints, my beliefs are, which, I should, but, we'll see.
Yeah, no worries. Very good. Great story, though. I didn't realize it would have a meaning like that. So that's really, I like those nuggets of information. Okay, so yeah, in your early career, I did notice, obviously, you did go to Ring of Honor. You joined up with the Carnage Crew there. I have interviewed both HC Loke and Tony Devito. So I've had their side of the story with the Carnage Crew. Please tell me about how it came about for you to join and the experience of working with those two guys.
Oh, Loke and Devito are awesome, man. The funny thing is, okay, so wrestling Ring of Honor. So I used to go to ROH when it very first started. I was there at the very first show, and I was a young boy, so I was going in there with Rudy Boy and whatnot. And before the match or the show would actually start, like, everybody would train in the ring. So the cool thing is, like, Loke and Devito would always be watching, and I would, shoot the shit with them because their interest music was Crowbar, from the band Crowbar, that's actually from Louisiana, and like I actually know those guys, and like I'm huge in the metal community in Southeast Texas and Louisiana. So that's how we became friends, is talking about music. But as far as like Loke and DeVito, like, those guys are awesome. Like, DeVito's funny, Loke is like serious, but then he's kind of not. Devito's more or less like. I remember one time we were in New Jersey at the Rexplex, and we have a huge match. It's like, a feud match with the Texas Wrestling Academy. And then DeVito's just sitting there. He's like this. He's like, looks like I'm thinking about stuff, right? And it's like, yeah, it does. Like, man, I ain't thinking about shit. It's like, oh, okay. Like, brainstorm something, please. Like we're up in like 5 minutes. Like, come on, man. But those guys are awesome, and they know how to they know how to work, they know psychology, and they're tough guys, you know what I mean? So it was cool to tag with them and like get their standpoint of psychology. Because like, Texas like wrestling psychology is different than the Northeast psychology. And like I've learned that, over many years of like, Japanese psychology, Mexico psychology, European psychology, and then there's a different work rate when it comes to like Texas, the Northeast and whatnot. But yeah, Loke, Devito, they're awesome. And you can throw in Justin Credible too. Justin's awesome too. But miss those guys, man. It's funny because like Loke it's funny because I just literally put this shirt out probably like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Masada, no weapons needed. And then Loke actually bought a shirt from me, and he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, how you doing, brother? Like, I'm doing great, man." But he's talking about like, "Hey, let's get Carnage Crew back together." It's like, man, you could have told me that like 10 years ago. Let's do it,
Yeah, no, I noticed they've been doing a little bit lately, so that will be really cool to see you hook up with those guys again.
Oh yeah.
I know that you had a bit of a run with them. And then the story switched, and you were going to now team with Danny Daniels, who obviously had previous history with Loke in ECW. So this is an interesting part of the Carnage Crew's history with the new and improved Carnage Crew, and you guys battling over the name. How did you enjoy going against them at that point and teaming with Danny?
Well, the thing is, that whole angle, I hated it, honestly, because I didn't know anything about it. We did Scramble Cage too. And, the thing is, I didn't know anything that was going on, honestly. So we did Scramble Cage too, and then we're in the locker room, and, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes there. And they cut a promo, and I'm just sitting there. Like, if you watch it, and I'm just sitting there, and like, like, you got to do a promo right now. With Gabe Sapolskys, like promo right now. I was like, okay, but I didn't know anything that was going on. And so they started selling like the fact that somebody had like, defecated in their bags, and I'm trying to sell it, but I didn't know what the hell was going on. And for me, like that whole angle sucked because I didn't know Danny Daniels. I didn't know him. I didn't know the history of him and Loke. And it felt like to me, it was like more or less like try to write me off in Ring of Honor, which ultimately that's what ended up happening. And I wasn't a fan of what the storyline was, what they finally told me, which Gabe told me. Is like, yeah, well, someone defecated in the bags and it's gonna be you and Danny. And it's like, what? Like, that's retarded. Like, why would that? Like, that's stupid. Like, people aren't gonna buy into that. Yeah, people aren't gonna buy into that. And it's like, it just felt like you're trying to write me off. And the matches he was booking us in or booking me in, it was just like, nah. And honestly, like, blessing in disguise, like, on the back runners, I was already talking to Charlie Akaiki, who used to live in San Antonio, Texas. That's where I'm based at right now, San Antonio. But Charlie, I met him in Major League Wrestling, and he used to write for the Japanese wrestling magazines and MMA and whatnot. And I had reached out to him beforehand with any of this stuff about going to Big Japan and going overseas. So luckily I had that on the back burner, because honestly, if I didn't, like, I would have been out of a job. So yeah, I wasn't a fan of that angle. I think it was stupid. And I'll say that to this day, like, I wasn't a fan of it. And I'm pretty sure, like, if we were sit down with Loke and Devito and Justin, they would say the same thing. It's like, why do that? You know what I mean? But you got to look at things from Gabe's point of view. Gabe didn't like the fact of flying me in from Texas and really didn't have anything for me. So it's more or less like we got to write him off. So I'll have to pay for that flight. And that's how I took it. So, and I'm pretty sure that's how it is. And I butted heads with him over the years over that. Like, hey man, I really don't appreciate how you treated me. And I mean, basically, you know, go F yourself, you know. Like I could have done a lot more Ring of Honor in those times, in those days, than what you let me do. So I had to venture out into the deathmatch scene. So, which is, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't like being labeled as a deathmatch wrestler. I don't like getting booked in death matches 24/7 because there's so much more to me than just blood and guts. You know, I pay my dues, you know, tenfold in the United States and overseas in Japan. So, I mean, it's there, you know, I'll do it. But end of the day, it's like I'd rather just wrestle, you know, and just, you know, I wish things would have worked out differently in ROH. You know, that's one of my big pet peeves of like wrestling in general. It's like I wish I had a real run in Ring of Honor.
Yeah, no, I get you, bro. And this is why when I introduced you, I said a deathmatch wrestling legend, but then I corrected myself and then said a wrestling legend as well.
No, and I appreciate that because a lot of people get misconstrued with things and they hear my name like, oh, he's just a garbage wrestler. It's like, all right, whatever, dude. Like the thing is, like my garbage wrestling, you should watch it sometime. And if you take all the weapons out, it's straight up wrestling, you know.
Yeah, man, it's kind of like Axel Rotten. A lot of people just thought he was just a death match kind of hardcore wrestler, but he could actually really work quite well. And that was, you know, there's always misconceptions out there.
Yeah, and the thing is, it plays into like when I was, you know, a teenager, and you know, yeah, it's like, oh, wrestling's all phony baloney, blah blah blah, and you know, when you hear guys getting thrown in barbed wire matches and they're beating the shit out of each other, and you see the marks on them, it's like, whoa, wrestling is real. And that's the thing that plays in the thing is like, oh, wrestling's fake. Like, I hate that. Wrestling is legitimately like as real as it gets, you know, from a physical standpoint and psychology standpoint, mentally standpoint. Wrestling is definitely real, you know. It's like my wife, her father is Black Gorman, and he's one of the originators of like hardcore wrestling back in the day. So, you know, meeting him in Mexico, it's like you see the scars on his head. You can't tell me things are like not legitimate, you know. And he's one of those old timers. Like if you say something bad about wrestling, he'll beat your ass. 83 years old, he'll kick your ass. So you know what I mean? It's like, mind what you say.
No, I know what you mean, bro. I probably only ever had maybe about 200 matches in my time doing local wrestling here, and my knee is still messed up. So for me, on just this small, very small scale of being a weekend warrior, and even I have issues physically from it. So I can only imagine what old timers have to deal with these days. That's for sure. There's a portion of your career that I was really interested in learning about because I saw that you had a bunch of these like opportunities in 2003 and early 2004. So I just wanted to rattle off a few of these matches and opportunities you had.
Okay.
There's the 14th of May 2003. You work a TNA Explosion match with Conan in Nashville. Mm-hmm. There's also the 17th of November 2003 in Beaumont, Texas, against Maven on Sunday Night Heat. And then the next day in Houston, you work a dark match against Jeremy Lopez on the Velocity tapings there. And then there's also 2 more matches with TNA in early 2004, one with 3 Live Crew. Can you please enlighten me on how you got those opportunities and what the feedback was? I know you said that Pat Patterson had given you some advice as well during that time. But what was the feedback and why were you maybe not signed at that point?
Well, I mean, the thing is, so Fast Eddie, who's a wrestler out of Houston, had told me that, you know, WWE is going to be in Beaumont, which was my hometown. And like, hey, he was like, yeah, you need to reach out to Bill Behrens from NWA Wildside. This is how wrestling connects, So, Bill Behrens had a connection with Johnny Ace, and I just messaged him like out of the blue. It wasn't through the Wrestling Academy. It wasn't through TWA or Rudy Boy. It's like I messaged Bill Behrens, and Bill Behrens was like, okay, you sure you want to do that? I was like, yeah, I want to do that, like put me on the list. So he put me on, and like I went, and just with my looks alone, the long goatee and the piercings and whatnot, they just had a pay-per-view, and they want to put me in as a security guard. And then Sergeant Slaughter and Johnny Ace were like, yeah, you don't look like a security guard. You look more like a wrestler. So how would you like to wrestle Maven on Sunday Night Heat, kid? I was like, yeah, definitely,
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, working with Maven, and like, Pat Patterson was one that really put the psychology standpoints of like, yeah, you need to be mad. You need to do this. You need to sell this to the camera and whatnot. Michael Hayes is actually, like, I was only scheduled for Sunday Night Heat. Michael Hayes is the one that got me my dark match the following day in Houston. But he came up after the match with Maven and I, and he was like, that was the best match you've had period, Maven. Like, that's really great. And then he was like, hey kids, like, so where are you from? I was like, well, I'm from here. And he was like, well, how much are you making on the indies? Are you making like, $50, $70? And I was like, at that time I wasn't getting paid anything, paying my dues. So I was like, yeah, that's a good payday. And he was like, well, from now on, charge $300 because you're going to be on TV. I was like, okay, but nobody bid on that. You know what I mean? I've been on like, yeah. And then all right, where's that free guy? Where's that $50 wrestler? Where's that $50 worker? But yeah, and then like I said, I did the dark, like you said, I did the dark match the following day. I wrestled Jeremy Lopez, which was funny enough because Jeremy Lopez, like, I've known him, I actually knew him, since I was 12 years old. We went to the same church together, and he actually left Texas to go to Florida to train with the Malenkos. And when I knew him, it's like we butted heads. Like, I was so into martial arts, like, wrestling bogus, blah blah blah. And he's like, no, wrestling's this. And I was like, all right, you want to go fight outside the church? Let's go fight, kick your ass, type attitude. But it was just kind of funny because how things work together. And like, I think it was 2021 or when we wrestled each other. But yeah, small world. But anyway, you know what I mean? They like my work. They like, the only criticism I got is just basically you need to tone up, and at that time I weighed 245, and they were like, you just need to tone up, because I was pretty bulky. And then Tommy Dreamer was telling me, he's like, yeah, you need to go drink the water in Mexico. I'm like, all right, like, wink, wink. So I mean, I did do that, and then I was still doing Ring of Honor, but end of the day, it didn't even matter. It's like you got to have your ends with everybody, and I've learned that over the years. Like, you got to have your ends with everyone to get pushed, and luckily Japan came about and just went over there and rocked it, and I hated my first series over there. Like, a lot of people don't know this. Like, I didn't do tours over there. I did series. The series is where you're over there for a period of months, not a week tour, 2-week tour, or a few days. So I would always go over there, 90 days and just go out there and kill it. And then come back home for maybe a day or two and then go back over there. So, paying dues all over. But then gradually it's like, doing that and building that reputation. That's where I could charge what, Michael Hayes is like, hey, you charge this, but I'm charging way more than that. So, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, man. I noticed in my research, it was 28 days after you had that final tag match in Ring of Honor that you are now in Big Japan in Kawasaki at BJW Road to Decade on July 17th. The first match, I'm just going to rattle off because I like to test myself to see if I can pronounce the names. Abdullah Kobayashi, Daisuke Sekimoto, Jaki Numazawa, and Ryoji Ito defeat Bad Boy Hito, Masada, Ryuji Yamakawa, and Shadow WX. So that was the first match.
Well, funny, that's not even. Yeah, that wasn't my first match. No, my first match was actually me in a singles match against Shadow WX in Kawasaki. Yeah, so that's no,
Damn it, bro.
That was like my debut.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for correcting me. I'm glad now that I know that. So cool. You've told us about how you had the opportunity to go there. And is this the first time you kind of encountered this like kind of ultra violent, I suppose, style of wrestling? And I guess, what did you learn from your first few times there in Japan?
Well, the thing is, like when I broke in 99, like hardcore wrestling was hot. So when I broke in, that was already popular. So I was already doing ultra violent wrestling, or more or less like hardcore matches, you know. So there was nothing new other than wrestling with light tubes and glass. Like when I wrestled in Louisiana, we used to do pits of pre-broken glass. So I would say it was new, but then the thing is, like, it wasn't new. You know what I mean? Like wrestling with light tubes. And my first Panes of Glass Deathmatch was actually when I went to CZW wrestling Danny Havoc, you know?
Right.
But yeah, it was definitely a culture shock of things. Like I said, Sandpoint, it's kind of like my first trainer told me, it's like, things are hard hitting and you need to be this, you need to do this. And when I went to Japan, it's like, that's what really paid off with his training. Because now we're not doing American style wrestling. We're not doing the entertainment wrestling of things. This is blood and guts. So like, you better have your stuff together, because they're gonna send you home if you don't. And that's how it was. Better go out there, go balls to the wall. It's almost more or less like being a gladiator. It's like, yeah, the more violent, better.
Yeah. And I hope I get the next part correct. You spend the next 4 years pretty much on and off in Big Japan. So you pop back to the United States here and there. Would you say that these 4 years of Big Japan, back and forth, is that where you kind of really made a name for yourself? And now some of these other companies like a CZW or an IWA, MidSouth, might be like, man, when he is finally back here for good, we need to get him on board.
Well, the thing is, like, my main thing was always to go back to the Northeast, and then WWE was always on the back burner of like doing tryouts and then going back over there. You talked about like my tryouts with Impact with TNA. When I wrestled with TNA, I wrestled Conan. I wrestled probably like 3 or 4 times in TNA, and every time I wrestled, I got no feedback on like what I need to work on or do anything. And TNA wasn't paying anything. So it's like, I'm literally paying money out of my pocket to be there. WWE was different. They actually paid my gas, paid me for the match. But TNA never paid anything. And then Bill Barron's, the same guy that got me a tryout with WWE, was like, hey, TNA wants you to come back in. I was like, Bill, I'm not going. Like, sorry, but I'm not going. And some people might be like, oh, that's a crappy attitude. But the thing is, like, if I'm paying $300 out of my pocket to go and just get jobbed out for, 2 minutes out of my time, like, it's not worth it to me. And especially when, like, at the time, they were just eating guys up. Like, you're going to put this guy over. I got no problem with that. But the thing is, end of the day, it's like, you're not paying me anything. So, and you're not telling me what I need to work on to actually get a job here. So I'm not doing this. But yeah, as far as like, wrestling Japan, I felt like it was longer than 4 years. I felt like it was really longer. But Ian is the one that brought me in for IW MidSouth King, the death matches, and Ian Rotten is honestly the one that broke me back into United States wrestling of going full force. I met DJ through Ian at IW MidSouth King of the death matches, and yeah, gradually it's like it was a snowball effect. I went to Combat Zone Wrestling back in the Northeast where I wanted to be, and prove a real standpoint of what I can do. So not blood and guts, but wrestling. I wrestled AR Fox, Sammy Callahan, Adam Cole. In the Northeast, like top of the top guys, not just even the CZW, but I wrestled Kevin Steen, turning Kevin Owens, El Generico, Sami Zayn, like all these top guys that are contracted now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, it's kind of struck me weird. It strikes me weird now, but back in the day, it's like, or even now, for example, like I'll get booked against guys. Like I just wrestled Brian Cage. I can't say just wrestled him, but before COVID hit, and he gets signed to AEW. Guys are going to WWE, going to Impact, getting full-term jobs with Ring of Honor, and then I'm here sitting in the dust, like, all right, so what the hell, man? Like, hello.
No, I can understand that probably feel a bit weird, having worked with all these guys, and you probably you feel like you've probably earned your opportunity to show your stuff in these places too.
Well, you're right, and the crazy thing is it's not just working with them; it's just like shortly after working with them, they get picked up. So, what the hell's going on? And like, I know I don't play the game. I don't play the game of wrestling of constantly blowing people up, begging for jobs, begging for work, and then eat peanuts off the floor, like type thing of like, hey, I'm so happy to be here. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I've done that before, and it didn't pan out for me. But then when I see guys that are going off and they're making millions or whatever the hell they're making, it's pretty frustrating. Of like, like I paid my dues, like 10-4. 23 years of wrestling and I'm still going. And then even with my style of wrestling, they're doing like death matches and cage of death and all the insanity of scaffold matches in Japan and sheets of glass and whatnot. Still up and moving, still working, still running. You know what I mean? Like, hey, yeah, I must have rubbed somebody the wrong way. I guess a lot of times I feel like I got blackballed, but I don't play the game, it is what it
understood,
is.
Bro. Yeah, understood. One match, and I really hope I get this one right. One match that I saw that sounded interesting to bring up. It's New Year's Eve 2009 in Big Japan that they're doing a show with Kaientai Dojo and DDT. It's called the New Year's Eve Special at the Kurikan Hall. It's a 108-man battle royal. How the fuck does that work? That sounds insane. Can you please enlighten me on what that was?
Well, I mean, it's exactly what you called it. It's like 108-man battle royal. Oh man, that felt like it was like 2 hours long. It probably was.
It went 85 minutes.
Yeah. So roughly a little bit over an hour and a half. But yeah, that was literally sitting at Corrigan Hall waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And they're like, oh, you're next. And then like DDT had like some stupid blow up doll like as a wrestler. And the funny thing is I've never been booed in Corrigan Hall until I started like kicking this blow up doll. And I started thinking in my head, this is really stupid. Like I was always been like a hardcore baby face, and then like I started kicking this blow up doll, and like they're booing me. Whatever. But the cool thing is, the only cool thing I could say about that is like Tajiri had just asked for his release from WWE, and getting to work with him a little bit in that battle royal. But yeah, that's just. I don't know. There's really not much to say about that other than it's just ridiculousness. Japan does some really crazy stuff, and maybe they think they're good ideas, or they just like kind of stick it to the business, I guess. But yeah, not the high point of my career.
Sorry to bring it up, bro. I just thought it was.
Oh, it's all good. And it's funny that you did bring it out because I forgot about it.
Okay, so talking about getting back to the US and Ian Rotten kind of breaking you back into the US. 2009 IWA Mid-South King of the Deathmatch tournament, the Hartman Rec Center in Joliet, I would say is a pronunciation, Illinois. We spoke to Thumbtack Jack about this the other day, and this is what your tournament looks like. First round, you defeat Tank in a barbed wire board Type A deathmatch. So the barbed wire board obviously wasn't enough. We need to add the Type A deathmatch in as well. This pops me. Semifinals the next day against Corporal Robinson in a flaming cinder blocks and hot coals match. That sounds like a nightmare. And then the finals, it's a 4-way double ring, no ropes, barbed wire, fans bring the weapons, 30-minute Iron Man match. That is insane. That is crazy. So please tell me about, because this is a big moment for you, winning this tournament. And you know, please take me through the day and you know how it felt to be back in the US and to have been given this credit.
Yeah, I mean, to come back to the United States and wrestle for IW Mid-South. The funny thing is, like, when I was just doing regular wrestling, like I'd worked in 2 shows through NWA Wildside with Bill Behrens.
Yeah.
And you know, just doing basic matches and whatnot. And then when I got the call from In, like I was living in Japan at the time. So he was like, you know, why don't you come in and I'm gonna put you over in this tournament. So first time going in, it's like, yeah, it was brutal. The first match I had with Tank, like, I was beat to hell. Like I did a tope con hilo, swanton over the top rope through a ladder on Tank, and I overshot him and ended up eating the floor. So my lower back was like killing me. And then the next following day, I had to wrestle Corporal and wrestle the finals. But it was great because in the standpoint of like wrestling and just hardcore wrestling, people that had forgotten about me, you know, they knew that I was still around, you know what I mean? And the funny thing is, like PWI magazine, they used to have the Pro Wrestling Almanac, and they used to do the top 15 prospects of people to break out. And in 2002 or 2003, like I was one of the top prospects to break out in the business. But the funny thing is, with everything that happened with Ring of Honor, I went to Japan, so they weren't following Big Japan. And the following year, they put the book out. Like they always do a follow up on what the guy's doing in the career, and like, oh, he quit wrestling and now he's in a metal band. Like no, like, all right, yeah, it's stupid. It's funny. I can show you right now. It's like, if you can see, like right there, that bin right there is nothing but wrestling magazines and books I've been in. And I'm actually in an Australian magazine, funny enough, that's in that bin. But you know, going back to the United States was awesome. You know what I mean? And gradually, like I said, it was a snowball effect. And the funny thing is, I lived in Japan for over 8 years, and I wrestled there consistently for 12. And you know, coming back to the United States and then working for CZW, and then going to Germany. A lot of people don't know, but Ian's actually played a big part of me going to Germany, but also me just wrestling in Japan played a big part of me going to WXW in Europe. And, you know, it was just great, you know, all around, even though being beat to hell, working for IW Mid-South and being there as a main player, it's like, it's awesome. You know what I mean? Honored by that, because Ian's been in the business since the 80s, you know, and he knows everything. And Ian is one of those guys, he's told me several times, is like, you know, Brig, it's like, you know, the only thing that's held you back from like breaking into the big time is your promos, your ability to speak, and you don't talk. My thing is, and it's a bad thing on my part, is just being who I am, like in Texas, talk is cheap. You know what I mean? We're gonna fight, and we're not gonna say nothing. So my mentality in wrestling is the same way. Like as soon as that entrance music hits and the bell rings, like it's on. You know what I mean? I can't tell you and be all energetic of kind of promo of I'm gonna do this to you and this and this. Like I'm not gonna tell you what I'm gonna do to you. I'm just gonna beat your ass. You know what I mean? You know, Ian has always been a strong supporter and like he's a good friend of mine. And, you know, I'm blessed to actually have friends like that in the business of like someone that daily, you know, checks up on me and make sure I'm okay, you know. Because for a while there, like after coming back to America, like I wasn't okay, you know what I mean? Constantly drinking 24/7, following that depressing route of like, well, why am I not signed? Why is this not happening? Pity party me crap. And my wife is the one that actually pulled me out of that. Thank God.
Yeah. What was it that was leading you down that road? Was it just like you had expectations of where you wanted to be at a certain point in your life, and it wasn't working out the way that you thought, so you had a crutch that kind of you thought might have been helping you get through it, but in the end was hurting you?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like with wrestling, like, you know, I'm sure majority of guys you talk to on here, it's like you work and then like you're traveling international. So it's kind of crazy. Like I remember doing one series like where or a tour. I did a tour in Europe. I was there for 2 weeks and then came back to the United States, did 2 days working at CZW, and then went to Japan for a month. And you keep doing that routine and it's like you're alone. You know what I mean? You don't have a social, you don't have anything really. And you're just there to pop the crowd, and you know, it is what it is. You know what you sign up for. But yeah, I mean, when you come back to the United States, like especially for me, because I was making really good money overseas and international, you know, going to Europe, you know, England, Germany, whatnot. And then you go back to back to North America, back to America, and it's like people don't want to pay you, they don't want to book you. They'll promise you, hey, we got you scheduled on this, we're gonna book you on this. It's like, hey man, my bills are still there, so I need to pay my bills. So you can't depend on anything. And it was more or less like life in general was just so dull and boring. It's like, man, I'd rather just drink myself to oblivion. And my dreams are better than my real life. You know what I mean? That's kind of sad to say, but it's how it was. And then I remember going to Philly, and David Starr is like, I'm going to time travel right now. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you know, it's like Thursday, I'll see you on Saturday, and just down a whole bottle. And that's what it was, man. Not good, you know, very self-destructive behavior. And you know, that's kind of like how my mentality was. Like, hey, they just want to put me in blood and guts matches. That's where my life is on, and it is what it is. But you know, my wife really pulled me out of that and seeing the brighter things of life and really live it to the fullest and be positive. You know, it can't be so negative. And like I said, a lot of things of wrestling, like I know I did it to myself, but when you deal with all the BS in wrestling of like trying to get a job and then people shut you down and kick you in the face, like, hey, I'm trying really hard to be nice. And the funny thing is later on when I was being an asshole and just like, hey, screw this guy, screw this dude, I started getting booked more, which made no sense. But you know what I mean? It's a ass backwards industry business, like to say the least. You know what I mean? Like,
all of that resounds with me, bro. It resounds with me because for the last, I'd say, 12 years, I've been in and out of rock bands here in Perth, and I put in so much time and positivity and just go into it. The last 5 years, just running a band at a complete loss, not making any money, but trying my hardest. But there's the bullshit politics, even in the local rock music scene, can't get anywhere. And last year I had to just throw my hands up and be like, I think I have to figure out something else I'm going to do with my life, because I'm in my mid-30s now and this isn't working. because there's just too much red tape and bullshit to get through in order to get to where I should probably be able to get to, because I don't think anyone in this city can perform as good as me as a front man in a rock band, as far as I'm concerned. But I just don't have the contacts, and I don't play the bullshit games to get there. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
the resounds of this,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's like the thing is like I was like the definition of insanity. Like I was doing the same thing every day and expecting a different result. Well, hey, you're still doing the same thing. And I mean, even in CZW, when I was wrestling guys like they were just straight up wrestlers and high flyers, you know, I'm thinking like, all right, I'm gonna get that call. Like somebody's gonna hit me up. But that's always been my attitude too with wrestling. Is like I don't reach out to promoters, you know. Back in the day when I first started, like I kind of did that, but not really. I more or less like, you know, left it up to my trainers to get me booked places. And the few times I actually did reach out to promoters, like they're not going to pay you what you want or it pay you anything. So even now it's like, you know, I'll sit here and somebody calls me or they message me, hit me up on social media. Then it's like, all right, well, this is what it is. I'm going to charge you this and this and this. But some guys, man, they can do it 24/7, just messaging promoters, boom, 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 boom. It's like, man, I don't have time for that crap. Honestly, you know, like I'm not gonna sit here and like, you know, baby powder things of like, hey, you know, can you book me? Can you do this?
yeah.
I ain't got time for that crap, man. Like, you know, I have a family, my wife, and like I have my business, my shoot job, and wrestling on top of that. You know, back in the day, wrestling was just my job, period. And then I started Exiled Artifacts of like making weapons and jewelry and whatnot. And man, I just don't have time to blow smoke up people's butts and like stroke their egos, which I wouldn't do that anyway if I did have the time. It's like it's not my thing. Hey, you want me? You know what I can do. I have a fan base, people respect, and you know, have been following me for years. So that's what I have to offer, you know what I mean? And I thank my fan base, honestly, you know, they're awesome, you know, but man, you know,
I know what you mean, bro. Even doing this podcast, I've been trying to butter up certain media people from certain big wrestling organizations to get me interviews with people on their roster, and they give me nothing. And you keep buttering them up and trying to push how great I am at what I do, and it's still like I get talked down to, and then it just gets to a point where I just send them an email back saying this will be our last correspondence. You can go fuck yourself. Like I'm not going to be talked down to or be made to feel like I'm nobody. You know, I'm trying to promote your company to a different country here that probably isn't getting, you know, a TV deal over here anytime soon. But anyway, exactly. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and you're right. The thing is, it's so crazy. It's like you're in Australia, so it's like you want to hit that market. Like, you know, there's a lot of wrestling fans in Australia, so you would think that people would be more appreciative and like, but the egos are so strong in America where it's like, nah. All right, like I've sent emails out. Like, the funny thing is, like, I've only literally sent out one demo tape in my career, and that was to Big Japan, and you know, they bid on it, and that's, you know, where I went. But yeah, when you email somebody or you reach out to them like, hey, you know, I'm interested in coming in, you don't even get a response or anything. It's like, really? Like, that's pretty rude, especially with wrestling. Wrestling has a mindset, and you know this, when you go to the locker room, you're supposed to meet and greet everybody. But some people are just dicks, you know what I mean? Like, hey, nice to meet you. My name's Brig, you know, AKA Masada. And they don't care because like you're there in the same business and you could possibly take their job. So they don't. But it's like my mentality, and it still is today. Like the majority of the time when I'm in a roster or a locker room with like people like shoot fighting, dude, I kick all your asses. You know what I mean? Like, that's my attitude. And like, I know I could whip their ass. Like, I'll knock you out on the fucking ground. I'll beat your ass and like make you realize who the hell I am. Want to snub your nose at me, you little bitch. But you know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean.
And I've done that. I've done that in my career. Like Necro Butcher was one of them. You know, when he was booked in Japan, had to play it nice with him. And then, like, once we came back to Texas, like, I'm kicking your ass, dude. Like, seriously. And the funny thing is, in that time period, it's like everybody was so afraid of him because he was shooting on guys and beating them up. It's like, you guys are a bunch of punks. Like, no, that's not happening with me, you know? So, and I, you know, I'm not trying to be condescending, but maybe I am. But I can watch people's matches, like, that didn't make any sense. That doesn't look good. You're not athletic at all. You know, you got 2 left feet, but you know, people are like, oh, you're just blood and guts. And then, like, I go and work with them. Like, AR Fox was one of them. He was like, he had made a smart comment, and he didn't say this in my face, but he had said it to some of the guys that brought it back to me. Is like, I don't understand why they booked Masada, because all he is just a blood and guts guy. I was like, oh, really? Okay. Hey, DJ, book me against him. And like, we worked. You know what I mean? Like, I can do all that high flying stuff that you do and school you on psychology, because you don't have it. You know what I mean? And that's not talking crap. You know, it's like, hey, your match structures are great. I mean, as an athletic standpoint, they're great. But the thing is, they don't tell a story of invest psychology. And the thing is, like, when I worked at CZW, like, a lot of people would say, like, oh, he has chemistry with this guy, you know, and wrestling with Adam Cole and Sammy Callahan, and just guys that were just known as legitimate wrestlers. It's like, yeah, dipshits. Like, you know, I was wrestling for Ring of Honor. I've been wrestling, you know, 3 years before ROH happened. You know, I know how to work. You know, I know how to wrestle. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is.
I'm not gonna be sitting here, not gonna be sitting here being bitter or whatever. But anytime, like, you have like Jeff Cobb, who's an awesome wrestler, or you have Brian Cage, great wrestler. And then, you know, when I broke into the Mexico scene and Lucha Libre, wrestled the original La Parca, Rush, who's the ROH. I don't know if he's a champion now, but, you know, I worked with him, Psychosis, Damien 666, and all of the veterans in Mexico love working with me. So you come back to the United States, where everybody's like trying to stab you in the back or like try to use you as a stepping stone. And it was like, okay. Like,
right.
It goes back into what I was saying before, like a real fire can kick your ass. So
yeah. It's interesting how, like, the other countries seem to help you along your way and do good by you, but as soon as you get back to the US, it's like you're in that shark tank again.
yeah, and that's the thing that's been so frustrating for me. You know, it's just like, internationally, it's like everybody likes my work and appreciates me, respects me, and then I come back to my home country where it's like, yeah, we're just going to use you. And, you know, I wrestle in front of blind eyes and deaf ears, you know what I mean? Because I don't understand the intimidation or what it is of like, we're going to take things from you, steal things from you, but we're not going to push for you. Like the whole skewers thing, like, you know, everybody and their mom's doing that here now. And it's ridiculous. Like, be original, come up with your own stuff. And it's not even something, yeah, that's my gimmick, but I don't want to be labeled as that. That's like I said, my new shirt is like, no weapons needed to get over, or just wrestling in general, fighting. It's like, I never needed a weapon.
You already are the weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Got these right here. I got my weapon ring, so.
So I still have a bit of a CZW to talk to you about. I wanted to know about the opportunity to wrestle there. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Tournament Death Rewind, where you worked with Thumbtack Jack in the final. This is kind of like within the first few months that you're there, I suppose, if my research is correct. But yeah, how did the opportunity come about to be in the combat zone?
Well, like I said before, like when I wrestled for IW MidSouth at King of the Death matches, I met DJ. And DJ's like, I'd love to have you in, like, something's going down with Combat Zone. He didn't tell me what was going on, but it was on, you know, he eventually bought the company, you know, from Zandig. And he's like, got big things coming up and planned. So I didn't really think much of it, other than like, hey, I'm going back overseas to Big Japan, and went to CZW. When I went to Combat Zone the first time, it's like it's the ECW arena. Production's awesome, and the locker room was so cool. Like you have Nick Gage, John Moxley, Sammy Callahan, Drake Younger, and Danny Havoc, and like the locker room is really cool. That's what really struck a nerve, where it's like, man, like this is so much better than in Japan, because Japan is pretty much like, it's not cutthroat, but it's more or less like who has like the I don't know, samurai spirit, the biggest samurai spirit of like go out there and kill yourself. But those guys actually wanted to wrestle and work. And that's what really drew me into CZW. Because originally I didn't want to work for Combat Zone. There's a lot of places I didn't want to work for. I didn't want to work for IW MidSouth. I didn't want to work for Combat Zone. And then gradually, my mentality changed. And that was all through like training with Rudy Boy and Sean, of work for these companies, don't work for this, Shawn Michaels hated like garbage wrestling companies, deathmatch companies. It's like, that's not wrestling. That old school mentality. But the thing is, it's like, yeah, it is still wrestling. The marquee is wrestling. But me going to Combat Zone is what really broke me out of like death matches, straight wrestling. And a lot of people could see that. And it's like, wow, we've been missing that the whole time with Ring of Honor. So with my career, it's more or less like going to Combat Zone was to take a stab at ROH of like, hey, this is what you missed out on. And this is what I'm doing. And like, I do it better than anybody on your roster. And I'm bleeding and I'm doing glass and all this other crazy stuff, which, it is what it is. You can't top that. You know what I mean? Like, I pride myself in saying this, but it's like, man, I'm one of the last guys that can do any style of true hybrid wrestler, of doing death matches, hardcore wrestling, lucha libre, European technical chain wrestling, Japanese strong style. My only downfall is like, because I don't want to speak on the mic or tell you this ridiculousness of bad acting that's not me. Well, God forbid, you know what I mean? So
I can always get someone to talk for you as well. I mean, it's,
yeah, exactly.
That's the point of a manager. If the guy isn't really keen on the stick, then you put someone with him that's their job.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I look at as me in wrestling as like in MMA or UFC. You look at Nick and Nate Diaz. Like, that's me. It's like they don't want to talk on the mic. They just want to go out and kick your ass. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean with Nate Diaz. When he talks, he's just like, he can't wait to get it over and done with.
Yeah. But the things he says are funny. You know what I mean? But he means it. But, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I am too. I wanted to bring up this match that you had with TJ. It was a House of Pain match, the final of Tournament Death Rewind. And he told this great story about this, because he said that this was the match where his spirit left him for deathmatch wrestling. And it was from a powerbomb into some cinder blocks. And he said, once I felt that bump, I felt like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, immediately into this system. And the match still went like another 20 minutes. It was mental. Please tell me about working with him and that match specifically, and any interactions you had with him afterward.
Well, like Thumbtack Jack, TJ is awesome. Like, a lot of guys didn't like him because, yeah, I mean, it's American wrestling. Like, you literally can, trip over your own feet and somebody get pissed off about it. But
yeah,
you know what I mean? The thing is, like, working with TJ is like really like snug with what he does, So in that match, is like he stiffed me a few times, and like, so I started stiffing him back. I didn't know that he felt that way on the power bomb. But Thumbtack Jack is like one of those guys, like, he can keep hitting them and beating on them, and he'll keep getting up. And like, I've always got along with him, you know, as a person and talking about life in general. Like, he's great.
He's an
Like I
awesome
said,
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's cool as hell. You know what I mean? And he gets the business, and to a degree, he takes it a little bit too extreme with things, like where it's like, it's not necessary. You don't really have to do that. You don't have to do so much. But that's kind of where the thing is, like when people are really passionate about things and then people don't see your vision, where they'll start shooting it down. But yeah, that match was long, and I remember getting cut on the side of my neck for him smashing light tubes like on me. And I was just like, all right, you little prick. You know what I mean? You know, we're going out there beating the hell out of each other. And I remember that power bomb. He went for a tornado DDT on a center box and light tubes, and I gave him a last right power bomb, which was stiff, but you know, it's the business, you know.
Yeah.
But TJ's awesome. I feel bad because like when I went to Germany and worked with him, we had a spot called where I would go for the last ride, and he would do a hurricanrana out of that. But the problem is like, I even told him, it's like, you're gonna need to go to my side. Like, don't go straight in between my legs. Go to the side, so that way you don't, you know, prevent from hurting you. But he went straight back, and like he ended up breaking his back.
Yeah.
And that's what ended his career. But then, you know, he's crazy because it is his career. But then, you know, several months later, he started training to do MMA fighting. It's like, what? Hey man, you're nuts.
And I'm happy to announce that he's actually completely pain-free at this point in his life,
awesome.
Even with the broken back and everything. He said that he's perfectly normal, so that's good to know.
Yeah, thank God, because I felt really bad about that. I actually went to the hospital to check up on him, you know, and like I said, I always got along with TJ, and like, you know, just literally, he's one of those guys I could sit down, you know, talk about life. And it's crazy because, you know, I'm from Texas, he's from Germany, obviously, and like there's so many connections. That's one of the awesome things about wrestling that I've learned. It's like connecting with people from different cultures in all parts of the world, and have that same camaraderie and niche for life in general, of like things you can do and things that can be better. And there's never anything negative, you know. That's kind of like the problem is like gradually, like, you know, I'm jumping from story to story, but like when I went to the Northeast and wrestling, like, you're like American wrestling, there's a lot of negativity in it, you know, and just like, man, just to function in that life and deal with people, like I need to drink something because I can't stand you. Like, I'm gonna literally rip your head off, or just like, I can't tell you what I think because you're gonna blackball me. So I literally would be drinking, which is a lame excuse, but that's really what it was. It's just dealing with people that are fake. And like, you know, when my tattoo on my arm is like, I'm surrounded by filth. That's how I felt at the time of wrestling. It's just, I'm just around a bunch of snakes that are gonna stab me in the back at any point and try to use me as a stepping stone.
It's like Bizarro World, isn't it? Like, but when we interviewed Doug Basham, he told us about how he just had a question on the finish and said, shouldn't we drop the tag titles at the pay-per-view? Because we already got the match against them at the pay-per-view. Why were we dropping them tonight? And then now the Basham brothers were now on Velocity for the next 10 months, not being utilized on TV because he asked one question. It just seems like, gosh, you can't even ask a question without getting shoved down to the bottom of the card.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, but the thing is with the Bashams, at least you still have a job, at least you're under contract. Yeah. But the problem is, it's like, you can't say anything without offending somebody. It's like people just, honestly, I think like it's a power trip where you have that standpoint to ruin someone's life, or like they depend on you. So like, man, you better walk on eggshells and like talk to me right. But me, it's like, man, fuck you, dude. I don't give a shit who the hell you are or who you think you are, dude. The street's right there, the parking lot's right there, and I'll beat your ass. You'll be sucking on the concrete. It's funny because I went to NXT one time, And one of the directors, like I asked him where Starbucks was. And he was like, got this little attitude, like, Starbucks is over there. Like, who are you? I was like, Masada. He's like, oh, I've heard of you. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, hey, bitch, you've heard of me, but I never heard of you. So fuck off. You know what I mean? I wasn't even there trying to get a job. I was literally just there to support a friend. Like, hey, come check this out. I'm like, all right, well, I'm here. You know, but man, screw that crap. I'm not gonna kiss your ass. Like, this is not gonna happen. And then you get pissed off because I didn't introduce myself. I literally just asked you like a common human being because I'm not from Florida. Hey, where's Starbucks at?
Yeah.
But whatever, you know what I mean? You got something to say, dude. Outside's right there. So you want to square up, let's square up. Get a fucking camera on it, beat your ass, and put that on tape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that'll get ratings, I'm sure.
Well, yeah. And the problem is, the more real you are in wrestling, the more they don't like you. It's like, oh, he's a tough guy. Don't fucking tell me blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, dude. Like, wrestling is supposed to be tough. It's a tough man sport. It's a tough man business. You know, that's like I have Bruiser Brody Cup too coming up, and it's actually in Carthage, Texas. And Bruiser Brody was the man. It's like Bruiser Brody didn't put up any of this bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
You swing a 10-foot chain around your head and wrap around your neck. You know what I mean? He didn't play that game. So I think there needs to be more of that in wrestling, of like just legitimate tough guys, of instead of like these, you know, talk behind your back and like, let me get your coffee, let me do this type of crap, you know. But it is what it is.
That's it, bro. I wanted to bring it to the 10th of March 2012. You win the CZW World Heavyweight Championship after defeating Scotty Vortex, DJ Hyde, and Devin Moore in a four-way match at Aerial Assault at the Boyles World Gym in Philly. This is a nice moment for you, right? I mean, you've been it. Someone believes in you. They believe that you can be the guy that people were paying their tickets to see. That means something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So please tell me how it felt to have won their championship at that time.
Well, the thing that's crazy is like, so on that show, like I wrestled Adam Cole in a singles match, and me winning the title was kind of thrown together because the last show was Cage of Death. And everybody had been telling DJ, like, hey, you need to put the belt on Masada. You need to put the belt on Brig. You need to do it. And he was like, nah, we're going to keep him waiting. Well, the finish happened in Cage of Death, and like fans just shit on it. You know what I mean? They were adamant about me having the title, which I wasn't politicking or anything. Like, that was the cool thing, is like, you know, respecting my work rate to put the title on me, the world title and the UV title, and join them together and actually go international, which I actually did. When I had the CZW World title, I defended it in Japan, Europe, Mexico, Canada, you know, everywhere, and made it a legitimate international title. But the match, me winning the belt, was, to me, it kind of felt like it was thrown together of, yeah, we're gonna do this four-way, and then like, I don't think I even pinned Scotty for it. I think it was Devin Moore I pinned, and I won the belt. So it's like, you know, like, I'm not even beating the guy that has the belt to win the championship. That was just like, whatever. But, you know, I got the title, and then I ran with it. And I held it for over, I want to say, a year and a half, you know, and I was supposed to hold it longer, but then my knee messed up. Like, I had a torn meniscus, and I had a lot of knee issues, like with my right knee, and like couldn't perform the way I did. And dropped the title to Drew Gulak. And you know, he ran with it, and now he's in WWE. So props to him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, bro. So also during this period of time, this is like a pretty big period of time for you as far as like accomplishments. Winning TOD 10 and 11 is a pretty, you know, the first guy to win them back to back. So that's, again, like your name's out there. During this time, you've won the heavyweight championship. You've unified the belts. You've made it a legitimate world championship. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that without a doubt makes you one of, if not the biggest legend from Combat Zone Wrestling history. That's just me saying that, not just saying it because you're on the show. That speaks for itself. You wouldn't have been given those opportunities if you were just middle of the road. So you performed in 8 versions of the Tournament of Death. You've won 3, including the one in Europe. Could you describe to me the atmosphere in the air the morning of a tournament like this? You know that you're about to go through 3 devastating matches. It's going to be a lot of hard work. You're going to be in a lot of pain afterward. What's that kind of atmosphere like in the air? You're backstage with all the boys, all the apparatuses and different things that are going to be set up or are getting built. Please tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, the thing is, like with me, it's always in my mind is doing something different. Every match needs to be different and doing things that people haven't seen. So, I mean, the thing is, I'm not bad mouthing people, but like a lot of people, when you see like their best of like DVDs or tapes or whatnot, it's like their matches are the same. Mine they've changed. Some things are similar, but they're always different. So my mindset is always prepping for tournaments is like doing something different every match. And that's what's really hard, because you only have so much time to do something and put something together. And then it's like, by the time you're done with one round, you're coming back, you're trying to heal up. And before you know it, you're back out there. So yeah, it's rough, but my mindset's always, like I said, do something different and keep the psychology there and stay motivated and try to be as safe as possible and not get severely hurt. That's like, the thing is, like a lot of idiots, like who are like, oh, deathmatch wrestling, nobody really dies. Okay, the whole principle of a deathmatch wrestling is the possibility that someone could die. That's what it is. And Nick Gage actually did die in one of his matches against Tag Jack. So that's the principle, where people are like so ridiculously stupid, where it's like, nobody's really dying. It's like, yeah, shit, we'd all be in prison if we were doing that. But
it's the premise.
It's the premise, the possibility that someone could die doing this. Okay, man. That's my wife. But like I said, she's been around, and she's been in the business longer than I have. It's like, far as her dad and like her uncles, like her uncle's Mil Mascaras, it's crazy.
Wow, holy shit.
Yeah, and her dad's Black Gorman. You know what I mean? So anybody doesn't know who Black Gorman is, you need to check him out. Like, legendary like wrestler and heel to the bone, man.
Oh, that's an interesting insight into, you always want to make sure, because it's usually three matches every tournament. You want to make sure that they're all different, and you did 8 of them. So that's, and that's just Tournament of Death. You did other ones as well. But I wanted to ask, I've asked everyone that's done something like this before the same question. How do you personally recover from a day like this? What do you do to get through the next few days? Because I would assume it would take a few days at least to feel somewhat back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, after tournaments like that, like, I would sleep. Best thing for healing is just sleep and rest. So that's what I would do. It was like, Abdullah the Butcher, like, he's one of the guys, like, you need to drink some red wine, get your blood count back up and rejuvenate it. But I always just slept, try to rest up like that. But that's what I did, you know what I mean? It's just get as much sleep as I could and then go on to the next show.
Right. Would you have a specific bed sheets in the house to be sleeping on after a tournament, considering?
No. No.
So just any bed sheets will be taking the brunt of the likely leakage of blood from your back.
Yeah, well, luckily at my time, like back in those days, like my bed sheets were black, so you couldn't see them. So.
Oh, that's smart, bro. That's smart. I said this to DJ last weekend. I was like, this is a great idea for your fans out there. Do you want to feel like you wake up like you've just been in a Tournament of Death and get the exclusive, CZW Tournament of Death bed sheets? And it's, it's all Prince of Bloodstains, and I think that would sell.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to fight that. I will say this, like I'm the second American like ever and only to win a tournament in Japan. Mick Foley is the first, I'm the second one. So that's one of the things that a lot of people don't put over, people forget. But it's like, as far as like deathmatch tournaments go and deathmatch wrestling, like I'm the only American besides Mick Foley to win a tournament in Japan.
That's huge.
Throwing that out
Yeah.
there. Yeah, it's a big deal. But yeah, PWI magazine don't cover that. I tell you, man, I get really frustrated, man. Every time I go to like Walmart and it's just a bad habit of mine, but I always look at PWI magazine, see what they're covering and who they're covering. And I just like, really? Come on, man. That's where my anger comes from. Like, I told my wife I got mad. I got so frustrated. Like I went to Walmart, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. And I'm looking at the magazine and I just got so frustrated with what the hell they're showing in there. I just threw it on the ground, just continue shopping. But it's like, man, this is bogus. Really? Come on.
I understand, bro.
Yeah, this is aggravating.
We're coming to near the end of like talking about deathmatch tournament stuff. I just wanted to bring up just under a month later after winning. Sorry, excuse me. Gonna scroll up. Winning. I think it was Tournament Death 11. You do the IWA East Coast Masters of Pain for the first time. I believe that's working for Madman Pondo. Finally, for the first time, you're doing this company's tournament. You go to the final where you lose to the Bulldozer himself. Could you tell me like your experience with IWA East Coast? Because it seemed like you only really worked there a couple of times. I think you also wrestled Matt Hardy there as well.
Yeah, I did. That's Pondo's company, and Pondo's one of the guys that gets to business. So when he brought me in, it's like, hey, we're gonna do this, and roll with it. Yeah, I only worked there twice. Like the second time was against Matt Hardy, but I always enjoyed working at IWA East Coast. Like it was a good experience. Some of the talent, like I wrestled Spider Boudreaux, who shouldn't have been in the ring, in my opinion. But it is what it is. Of someone who's got the size, but he never trained a day in his life to be a wrestler. So my attitude was like, hey, you shouldn't be in the ring with me, so I'm going to treat you as such. And even Tremont, for a while was like that. Like I didn't respect him when he came in. And then later on, it's like, man, Tremont is awesome. It's like, you have to earn my respect. I'm not just going to give it to you. And I'm not going to stab you in the back and like try to blackball you. All this other stupid crap that goes on in wrestling. But, I'm going to beat the hell out of you. And hey, he brought it right back. So, putting him over, it's like he earned it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. I had him on the show. Awesome guy as well.
The
last two questions about deathmatch tournaments here. 2017, I thought this was mental. You did the Tournament of Survival for GCW in Howell, New Jersey. And then within a week, you did Tournament of Death 16. Both times going to the semi-final as well. So it's not like you just bowed out in the first round at Tournament of Survival, to save yourself for the fall. No, you went to the semi-final both times. How is this humanly possible that you could get through this?
Just a lot of craziness, man. Honestly, like a lot of things I did when I was younger, like I don't know how I even did it. Like even now, I'm like, what? That's more or less just proving a point of being the best that you can be and going out there and do what you got to do and fighting and being extremely tough, obviously. But yeah, I remember that. It's just like back-to-back tournaments and death matches, just going full force. That's my best answer to that. It's just being the best you can be. And even NGI, like when I won the NGI tournament for Nick Gage Invitational, at that point, like I had left Combat Zone Wrestling. I didn't like how things were going, so I left. And then going back to NGI was a stab at them, a game changer, because they have an ongoing feud of who's the best company and whatnot. And, you know, I don't get into the politics thing. It's like, hey, you know, you book me, pay me, and I'll bring the fan base there, but go balls to the wall, you know? And I don't milk anything. And so either I'm going to the finals or going to semifinal. Like, that's how it is.
Yeah. I noticed today that Ricky Shane Page, he announced his retirement from death matches. And here you are 2 months ago, from my research, you competed in another King of the Deathmatch tournament, getting from the first round to the semi-finals. What keeps you going with this? I mean, obviously, getting paid to work these things is obviously a big part about it, but do you plan on cutting back on it soon? Because you know, I noticed a few guys like Matt is also he's retired as well. But do you want to try and get away from deathmatch style stuff soon?
Hey, I mean, if it makes sense, it's kind of at this point in my career where it's like, if it makes sense, then I'll do it. But if it's like repetitive and like keep going and going with death matches, and there's no real angle, there's no real feud, or there's no heat there, then yeah, it gets old, it gets stale. And I'm never going to say I'm going to retire from it, but I will pick and choose when I want to do things, you know? Like lately, like I have a lot of bookings coming up in Texas and, you know, even the Northeast with XPW Rebirth of like just straight up wrestling, you know? So I'm going to keep it going that route and just wrestling, you know, back to the way things were, you know? I'm actually hitting the gym, working in the ring, and just building back up psychology and more technical move base and strong style wrestling. But yeah, I don't blame Ricky, because, you know, Ricky just did a tryout with AEW, and, you know, it's deathmatch wrestling. And once you go to Japan, you go international with it, it's only going to take you so far. Where if you want to go to the next step, which is like North American TV, you know, AEW is doing death matches, but it's not on that level, and you don't have to do it. You need to start focusing more or less on what they want, you know? So I get it. But I am going to wrestle Ricky, you know, in October, and Taipei death match, and he better have his A game for that one. I can tell you that
much. So getting away from this stuff, I did notice in my research, and notice it's something that you had said earlier about seeing Sabu perform for the first time. I did notice that you had worked with him, I think, in 2017. Not sure if you worked with him prior to that, but just from your standpoint, how was it being able to have the opportunity to finally wrestle that guy?
I mean, it's awesome. Like wrestling with Sabu, I wrestled with New Jack. I wrestled with a lot of guys from ECW and FMW. I mean, like I said, I've worked with a lot of guys that have been there and done that with WWF, WCW. And to be in the ring with Sabu is a legend, you know, and Sabu is one of the main guys that got me motivated to, or get that passion dream going to be in the ring and wrestle. So to be in the ring with him one-on-one, it was awesome. You know what I mean? And as old as he is, and that he can still go, and it's just like, it's crazy, you know, but it's awesome. You know, he's old school mentality of, you know, passionate for the business, and can go and has so much to offer. And I don't think he ever got his just due in wrestling. I really don't. Where he should have been making millions of dollars, and like he should have been pushed as a top guy and real true innovator in wrestling. But, you know, that's kind of how it goes, man. It's like you got a lot of black sheep in wrestling where you don't get your just credit, but people steal from it all the time. But being in the ring with Sabu was amazing. And, you know, what else can I say other than it's like, it's a badass guy, and, you know, same mentality, same personality, talking to him. And I've been on shows with him prior, but being in the ring with him one-on-one was awesome. And, you know, same thing with New Jack. You know, it's like a lot of people had a misconception on him, or they say like, oh, he's just this and he'll stab people. And he'll shoot on guys for no reason, but that's not the case.
No,
like if
no, that was always a
the thing
reason.
New Jack actually was one of the guys that protected the business. And if you didn't like how he protected the business, well, it's wrestling. Wrestling's tough, you know what I mean? It's the way it's supposed to be. And if you got somebody in there that shouldn't be in the ring, and then he takes, I wouldn't even say liberties, but he shows them what's up. Like, hey, like you don't need to be in here, and like you're ruining my image and my gimmick of who I am as a person. Then do what you got to do. I don't shed no tears for anybody that he messed up, but it is what it is.
Yeah, bro. Now I'll tell you a little funny story about me and Sabu. So I have interviewed him as well. But when I was wrestling here in Perth, it was 2014, and the company I was wrestling for said to me, "Hey, at our big show of the year, would you like to wrestle Sabu?" And I thought to myself, I'm not good enough or for something like that, especially with him, at this point in his career. I don't think that should be, but obviously I'm interested, because who would have thought? And he said, "Yeah, cool, man. But like, if you want to, like, you have to pay for his fee, so you have to pay $2,500." And I was like, "Cool, man." I quit, and then I didn't wrestle for them anymore. I'm not paying to wrestle somebody.
That's a carny part of wrestling. Yeah, it's like
that is, bro.
you get to wrestle them, but you got to pay for them. Like,
No,
so you can make money on the back end. No, I'm good.
I'm a mark, but I'm not that much of a mark.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem. That's the mentality of wrestling. It's like I always got this vibe, like with TNA, like doing tryout matches, was like it's a mentality of like you're lucky to be here and just be happy you're here, but it's like no, like, but that's ridiculous. Yeah, we're gonna book you this guy, but you got to pay for him. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Ridiculous.
Another match I wanted to bring up as we get to the tail end here, bro. 9th of December 2018. It's Cage of Death 20. It's at the arena. It's yourself and DJ Hyde against Atsushi Onita and Matt Tremont. This is pretty big. Doesn't happen very often that he comes over here to do something like that. So how did it feel for you at that point in your career to actually get in the ring with him?
No, well, that's goes back in this same standpoint of wrestling with guys from ECW and FMW, and Onita's a legend and knows the business, and it was great because I'm on the same page with him of like putting a match together, structuring things, and going out there and doing it. But yeah, Onita is awesome, and I don't know how old he is, but he's still kicking, still going.
He's still going, yeah.
Yeah, he's still going, still doing exploding ball bar matches and all that craziness. Yeah, being in the ring with Onita, Sabu, it's like, another feather in my hat of like, hey, I work with this guy, and here's another guy that likes me, you know what I mean, as far as like working with me, which is great. Like that's the thing, like anytime I work with feedback from veterans that have been in WWF or WWE, or guys that haven't even been there but on the indies have gone to the mainstream companies in America, they all like working with me. So it's like I said, it's a feather in my cap of like working with top people, top talent from the past and the future, of like being able to be strong and going out there and doing good work. And the funny thing is, I joke with my wife all the time. It's like, in 10 years from now, I better be in somebody's WWE book. Like, I better be. It's like I've helped a lot of guys out. Like, you know what I mean?
I get you, bro. So I wanted to talk about COVID for a minute here, because obviously there was a good portion of time where you wouldn't be working, as no one really was at the time, unless you were doing WWE or AEW. But how did that affect you the most, that period of time? And, in a way, that little break from being in the ring, did it help your body feel a little bit better?
Well, the thing that sucks with COVID, when COVID hits, like I had my full schedule planned out for the year. I was doing stuff in Northeast, Detroit, Florida, in Mexico, and COVID hit and everything just started gradually like falling off. Like, can't fly here, can't do this, can't do that. And it's like, oh crap. But luckily it's like with me, it's like, you know, I have a real job, like metal fabricator. So with my shoot job, I never took any time off. But the crappy thing is, like with my job, it's like not moving the way I'm used to moving. That's honestly why I've gotten back in training with in the ring and lifting weights, because everything I do in my real job is just so robotic, where it's like, man, I need to move around, do some moonsaults, cartwheels or something. But yeah, it affected me like not in a good sense, because like I'm so busting my ass working a manual labor job, so my body still aches, but it's worse because I'm more or less like a robot moving a ring. So I actually did develop ring rust. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm gonna try to stay away from that. But yeah, things are gradually opening back up. Like the state of Texas, things are open. Florida's open. You know, get into the politics of everything with COVID. I'm not gonna run around like a chicken with my head cut off, like, you know what I mean? I might do this and die, but some people have, you know, God forbid. But end of the day, I'm not gonna stop living my life. You know, I don't think anybody really should. You should go out full force, and you know, don't be afraid to leave your front door. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
In my
I get
opinion.
you, bro.
Yeah,
I
people
get
might
you,
give you
bro.
opinion, like, oh, you don't care. Like, no, it's not. I'm just saying, live your life. You know, you can't just stay at home and just sit around and like, oh, this is nice, being lazy and not doing anything. That sucks. Like, I can't sit around not doing anything. But like I said, you know,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you know, but you know, I got bookings coming up. Like I have, you know, I'm gonna go wrestle in Houston the 18th of this month against one of Booker T's like top students. Work with him at Loco Wrestling, and then from there I'm going to Bruiser Brody Cup, which is in Texas, and then going to XPW Rebirth, which I'm really excited about that. You know, because XPW was a big deal, and a lot of things have changed as far as like what the company originally was doing, which I wasn't a fan of. But just straight up forward wrestling and being the best and hybrid wrestlers. And also have another booking that's in Illinois, in Chicago. So, you know, things are picking back up, you know, and it's cool because, you know, like I said, I've told my wife, and like I said earlier on this podcast, where I don't reach out to people, people reach out to me, and I'm honored by that. When someone's like, hey, we need you, like, we want you there. And then I'm like, all right, this is my fee. And they're like, cool, no problem, come on in. So, you know, that's badass.
Yeah, cool, man.
And
Good
then,
to
like
see
I
there's a whole heap on the horizon there.
Yeah, and then like I said, like, you know, my side job from wrestling and then my shoot job is like get to make stuff like this. You know what I mean? Throwing knives. Like, so I do custom orders, like exiled artifacts, make weapons and jewelry and pretty much whatever you can think of. I'm in my shop right now. You see all the tools and whatnot. It's my forge. And
Nice.
so once I get done with my real job, like I come home, I work out, lift the weights, work on orders, and then from there, Tuesday and Thursday, go and work in the ring. And you know, I'm constantly busy, man. You know, my
Yeah,
wife and I
man.
are busybodies. You know, can't sit still.
Yeah, man. It's funny. Earlier, I said when I first saw a picture of you, I thought you'd be in a heavy metal band. You being involved with heavy metal, I didn't think it'd be literally involved with heavy metal. So,
Right. Yeah, definitely. No, it's funny. Like, yeah, I'm in metal fab and like make weapons and knives and whatnot. Yeah, definitely into metal. Metal's my thing. Sure.
So I think you said earlier, you're 40 years old now. What else do you hope to accomplish in the wrestling business going forward? You know, is there still some dreams that you've got there that you hope to accomplish?
I mean, the thing is, like, my main thing is like putting in retrospective things I want to do and things I can do. Like WWE does not interest me in like doing the schedule of wrestling every day. Impact interests, I'm interested in going to Impact. I'm interested in going to AEW. Ring of Honor, like I've tried knocking on that door so many times. They booked me 11 years after being there just to put over Roderick Strong, and I've reached out to them and got nothing. So I'm just like, whatever. But in the back burner, I'm really hoping XPW picks up and goes back to what it was doing. Not back to like all the stuff it was doing, but just going back and being on TV and pay-per-views and whatnot, and being part of something new that branches out. But AEW is like one of the things, like I watched the product, watched it like 3 weeks ago, and I like what they're doing. And that's something where I really wouldn't mind seeing myself in. Whether it happens or not, it'd be nice, but we'll see how things go. It's kind of crazy because I watched, AEW or NXT or WWE or Impact, and it's like I've worked with all these guys, like every single one of them. I've been in the ring with them, unless they're just really new and they're, homegrown talent from the company. But other ones, guys that are veterans, I've been in the ring with them. So it's kind of like at 40, it's like, I need to branch out and break it off in America, because I haven't done that. I've been in here, done this, and my name's always been the same. It's never changed. So I guess a lot of respects to that. It's like I've never changed my style, never changed my gimmick. I am who I am, and my wrestling name is what it is. It's not going to change. But AEW is somewhere I wouldn't mind, throwing my boots down and like doing something there before I hang it up, which I don't see that in the future, but you never know, man. I'm going to keep going till the wheels fall.
No, man, that would be cool. And one of, I was just thinking then, have you ever reached out to MLW?
To Major League Wrestling?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I emailed them like before COVID hit. I emailed them, and I've worked for Major League Wrestling before, like their first show, and I sent them an email. I heard nothing back. So it's kind of like, well, it's the same thing. Like I've worked with all the other guys, like, it's like, what do you want me to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just thought to myself, then that might be a good fit as well. But AEW would be obviously, that would be pretty
right.
cool.
But I don't know. I think the thing is, maybe people have big misconception on me. It's like either I'm hard to work with, or they just don't want to do blood and guts. Where it's like, hey, don't label me like that. But they do deathmatch, they do barbed wire, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather just wrestle.
I get you, bro. That's awesome to hear. So we get to the end here of the interview, bro. I've got one final segment, 5-second frenzy. You have 5 seconds to answer each question. Even if you break the 5 seconds, it's okay. You won't get in trouble. Most wrestlers need more than 5 seconds anyway with this segment, but it's 12 quick fire questions. Your favorite this, your favorite that. Are you ready, Masada?
Yes.
Okay. First question, who is your favorite wrestler?
Oh man, there's so many. Like Terry Funk's one of my favorite. Like when I was a kid, Bret Hart. Funny enough, Bret Hart was my favorite, and then Terry Funk, and going to high flying like Hayabusa, Sabu, Lucha Libre, La Parca, which is funny, getting to work with him, but La Parca always in WCW as a kid, I like watching him because I love the skeleton character. And funny thing is working with him was like, man, I used to watch you when I was a kid. He's like, oh, okay, thank you. But it's like, you know what I mean? He was one of my favorites, There's just so many. It's like who's your favorite musician or who's your favorite band? I really can't just name off one. There's just so many that
will be coming in my questions. First few about wrestling though. Who would you say is your favorite opponent you've had over the years?
My favorite person I actually wrestle with was Danny Havoc. That was my favorite. God bless him, rest his soul, man. But Danny Havoc was one of my favorites to be in the ring and like, hey, let's do this tonight and let's do this. And like, I feel that Grant Havoc always like kind of doubted himself as a wrestler, because that's kind of like a lot of things with wrestling that's bad. It's like with promoters and stuff, you start doubting yourself. And then with him, it's like, dude, I wrestled the top guys, and like you're one of the guys that's like I really enjoy wrestling with and like can go. But that's my favorite opponent. Jun Kasai, you could throw him in there. And yeah, those are the top two, as far as like my career goes. And then straight up wrestling, like it'd be a lot of people that are actually from Texas that haven't broken out of the state, but a lot of guys here, really, I say anybody that's like good or going on the standpoint, like I've working with AR Fox, Sammy Callahan, top notch talent. But as far as like mainstream of like just a mainstay of like being competitive and working angles, would be Danny Havoc and Jun Kasai. Those are my favorites.
Cool. Excellent. I know this will be a tough one, but is there a match that you look back on that you would say would be the favorite one that you performed in? Is there one that you could pick?
Man, honestly, probably me and Jun Kasai, and man, I don't know. Yeah, damn.
Sorry.
Yeah, as far as like the deathmatch scene, or like rouse, like me, Jun Kasai, and Pain's the Limit 3, because it was a 3-year build-up for that finals. That's one of my favorite matches. And then I've been honored, like Yoshisa Sasaki, who used to work for he was an FMW young boy who broke out in 01. I wrestled with him in a Nowhere Barbed Wire match in Germany, and he asked for that match of a retirement from death matches. So that's one of my favorites. Man, yeah, there's a lot, and all my straight up just wrestling matches, like there's just too many guys, too many to name, but those are the top two that stand up in my head, stand up in my mind of like my favorites.
Yeah, no worries, bro. Getting away from wrestling now, your favorite book?
None. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like lately, I've been reading a lot about forging weapons. So, yeah, don't know the label. It's just kind of like, hey,
that's cool, bro. Yeah, we'll go with one of those
type things. But like, yeah.
All good, bro. Favorite TV show?
Forged in Fire. Back in the day, it was funny because it used to be Home Improvement. Home Improvement when I was younger, but then Extreme Home Makeover. That used to be my favorite show. And the funny thing is about that, it's like, yeah, people that are doing good in the community, and then like, they come and like refurbish, rebuild their house, and like make their dreams come true, or things they can't afford. Like, that's awesome. I used to love that show. Then they reamped it, but it doesn't have Ty Pendleton in it, so I'm just like, yeah, I ain't watching that. He's the one that made that show.
I get you,
Forged in Fire is my favorite show.
Okay, cool. Do you have a favorite film?
Favorite film? Oh, I think it'd be a toss up between Demon Knight from Tales from the Crypt and The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp. Like, those are like my two favorites. And then Jaws. Which is funny though, because like I'm definitely afraid of sharks. Like, sharks freak me out.
We alluded to it before, but you're gonna have to answer it. It's a favorite musical artist or band, bro.
Crowbar. Yeah, Crowbar is my favorite by far. That's my favorite band. Funny enough, it's like I've only used them as interest music once, but like as far as like just listening to them every day, Crowbar would be the band that I can listen to all the time.
Okay,
and I have Time Heals tattooed on the side of my left calf, so that's obviously one of my favorites.
Nice, bro. Getting away from the arts now, your favorite food?
Oh, favorite food. Well, when I lived in Japan, sushi became my favorite food. Now I'm back in Texas, so Tex-Mex. You know what I mean? But it's also got my downfall because I'm trying to eat right. Lately, I've just been eating tuna fish and lettuce. So I've been eating a lot of tuna salads, and that's it.
Delicious.
It's not my favorite. Right? It's not my favorite. But hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Did you have a favorite place to eat on the road?
Ah, man. I guess it'd be Wendy's, because back in the day when I would drive and like go to Georgia, wrestle in Cornelia, Georgia for NWA Wildside, it was Wendy's or Waffle House. And they're not, either one are not my favorites, but they were the ones that were open. So
we do get Waffle House
really
a
on the road. Well, the crazy thing is, like, people, like, man, you can ask people, like, whoever you're interviewing next, but they would be surprised, like, if they ask you, like, what does Masada eat? You'd be like, he doesn't eat anything. Like, I literally can go 2 or 3 days without eating. It's crazy. But it's legit. Like, I could do that. Like fasting or whatnot, just not hungry. And constantly chain smoking of cigarettes and dipping. But yeah.
Second last one, bro, for 5 Second Frenzy. What's your favorite alcoholic beverage?
Right now, Shiner Bock. Like,
nice. Sorry, there was actually 2 more after this. The second last one is the naughtiest one of 5 Second Frenzy. Your favorite female body part. You're going to check out a good looking girl. What do you go to first?
My wife's face. Like, my wife. So
yep, the face is a good answer, bro. That's a nice answer. And the final one, bro, is your favorite curse word.
Probably fuck. Like, I should say that quite a bit. You know what I mean? The bad thing is, like, when people are like, hey, cut a promo, I'd be like, fuck. But it's like looking back, like, yeah, that was stupid. But and you drop it like, hey, you need to cut a promo. I was like, well, I'm not really feeling this. Like, what's my motivation here? Like, you're supposed to be angry. All right. Well, this is what I would say. But yeah. That's
it's
it.
the number one answer usually for that question. Masada, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me here today. I really appreciate it. And this was like a really fun chat. My face hurts from smiling. And what I always say when I have guests on this show, because it really is important. I live in Perth, Western Australia. It's the most isolated city in the world. So I think that really says something, the reach that somebody can have to be all the way on the other side of the world, me being the most isolated city, see their work, see what they do and appreciate them. So I want to take the time to say that all the way over here, you have a whole bunch of people that appreciate you and what you have done in the wrestling business, sir.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you reaching out. Like, it's awesome to be a part of this, and like, it's cool because you're in Australia and I'm in Texas. The world's small, man. It's not as big as everybody thinks it is, and like, everybody ties in with each other. And thank you for having me on. And let's do this again. Definitely, I've enjoyed it.
Bro. Sounds great, bro. Thank you again.
So your time is probably what, 2?
It's 1 in the morning now. Yeah.
1 in the morning, so you need to get some sleep.
Yeah, I got a little bit of wine to drink, but
hey, there you go, man. But
well,
be safe in Australia. Be safe out there, because I hear things on the news here, like things are pretty rough out there with COVID. So I don't really believe everything I hear, but just keep your head on straight and be safe, bro.
Will do, bro. Fingers crossed.
And yet again, appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, bro. And thank you everyone out there for watching the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WCWA network. I'm Californian Free with my new friend here, Masada, and we will see you next time. Thank you.